thing lined up. We're going to, hopefully answer a lot of your questions. These webinars are always as interactive as you all want to make them. So you do have a question tab on the GoToWebinar app. There is a chat feature as well. So you can fire away your questions to us and we'll be happy to answer them. If you want to share any feedback or even are interested in coming on live to chat with us, we're more than happy to do that as well. So please don't hesitate to ask anything that you may want to know. Before we get started tonight, I do want to kind of get a sense of who we have in our audience here today. So I'm going to launch this poll right now, just asking you guys what some nutritional challenges you face when you exercise are. It could be low energy, some GI issues. A lot of people have trouble timing a meal before they work out. People struggle with highs and lows in energy. So feel free to answer this poll however you see fit, and we'll get a little bit of an idea of who we're talking to here and kind of how to tailor our presentation this evening. But Seth, before we get started, why don't you share with folks how you found out about Generation UCAN?
So I was actually interning for a sports nutritionist, and she sent me the white paper. And I looked at it. I saw the red line that showed the steady blood sugar, and I thought, this is exactly what I need. At the time, I was doing pretty high-intensity hill sprints and some weight training workouts, and I decided to treat my body like a laboratory and decided to get online, order 6 packets. This was when you ordered 6 packets to a pouch. And my friend and I, who had been running hill sprints every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, decided to try it out. We did it the wrong way, though, Varn. We used probably lukewarm water. I mixed it in a big red cup and used a knife to mix it together. Probably not the best way, but I got it down and started running my hill sprints. And the last few sprints was when I started to understand that, wow, this is making my brain feel different. And it was the way my brain felt originally at the bottom of the hill, especially when you're running 100-yard hill sprints. Usually you hesitate, but as soon as I got back down to the bottom of the hill, I wanted to go right back up. I had no hesitation, because your legs get, pretty fatigued. It's kind of nauseating, and hill number 5, 6, and 7 is usually very hard, and so I was ready to go. And I remember I felt stable afterward. I didn't want to lie on a couch for 3 hours like I usually did. So and my friend felt the same way, and that's where I knew we were onto something here. And now here I am. I quit my job working as a nutritionist for tennis players and working on weight loss for adults to work on the education for the company. And so 2.5 years later, here we are today.
So, Seth, as I'm looking at the results of the poll on the screen, nutritional challenge people face, I would probably put myself along with that 44% with the GI issues. For me, finding out about UCAN was really a struggle to find the proper fuel source before playing in basketball, which I used to and still do play frequently, pick up basketball. And it was always, do I have a banana? Do I have a piece of toast? What do I have? And it was that struggle of finding something that 30 minutes into the game wouldn't really upset my stomach or kind of sit heavy in my stomach. And then UCAN was really, from the standpoint of something that gave me the energy I needed, it was the first thing that I could find that would just get in and out easy and really had me feeling light while I was playing. Where would you say you fall in this spectrum, in terms of nutritional challenges you were previously facing for a workout?
Well, in honesty, the 0% is where I'd first find it, the difficulty timing a meal prior, because the fact is that if you're someone who just has a meal, 2 hours before you exercise, your blood sugar is going to naturally decline during the workout, but also you're going to get some of that bloat, in your stomach before. And that might also fall into the GI distress, I guess. But, the highs and lows in energy, it's more the fact that I would get, I would get hungry and kind of a little bit low, and it would distract me from the workout. That's the worst part. It would take away the intensity. And so I probably fall into difficulty timing a meal, even though that was 0% and highs and lows in energy, but more lows than highs.
All right, so let's we've kind of got a variety of folks in the audience today. Some that have used the product a lot, some that haven't used it as much. So let's take a few minutes to go through the science behind UCAN, kind of talk about what it is, how it works, and then we'll definitely get to some more specific use cases. But the problem that's going on, which kind of I just shared my own experience, which a lot of you may be having, is a lot of the typical pre-workout foods we've been conditioned to have, the bagels, the bananas, bowl of cereal, energy bar. The calories enter your system very quickly, and your blood sugar spikes. It goes up very rapidly, and it's the old adage: what goes up must come down. You get the highs and lows in energy that we've been talking about, because with a lot of these carbohydrate-based foods, you're just getting a calorie dump into your system. The same thing's happening with a lot of your sugar-based sports drinks out there. The Gatorades, Powerades of the world. With the simple sugars, they require frequent redosing, and you're taking them over and over throughout the workout, and they're giving you that sugar spike. And when you come down, you're hitting them again. Same thing with a lot of the newer products you've seen. A lot of the newer products, the hammers, accelerades, they use a carbohydrate called maltodextrin, which was thought to be an improvement over simple sugars originally when it came on the market, because it was easier on the stomach. It was a larger molecule, got in and out of the stomach quicker. But even with maltodextrin, you're getting a very quick burst of calories. Maybe calories, a serving of any of these products might last you 30 to 45 minutes before you have to refuel. So with UCAN, we're kind of looking at things totally differently. Instead of talking about that rapid surge of energy, what UCAN's all about is keeping you steady and keeping your blood sugar stable. And we're going to hit on that point a little bit more here in a second. But Seth, what is blood sugar? From my perspective, 3, 4 years ago, before I was involved in any of this, my dad's a type 2 diabetic, and for me, blood sugar was something that he spoke about. He had diabetes. He has to worry about blood sugar. But, for me, 20 something year old who is healthy and, active, I never thought that blood sugar is something I should care about. So what is blood sugar, and why should everybody care about controlling their blood sugar?
Well, it's pretty simple. Your blood sugar levels are really the amount of sugar that's circulating through your bloodstream. And you're supposed to have a small amount of sugar, roughly a teaspoon or 5 grams or so, that flow through your bloodstream. And it feeds your brain, feeds your cells, and basically keeps you alive. Um, the problem happens when you take in too many sugar-based carbohydrates, too much cereal, bagels, bananas, and you raise your blood sugar level too quickly. And then your blood sugar gets high, and then you're dealing with really high blood sugar, and that's an emergency signal to the body. The body knows that it shouldn't have such high blood sugar. And then certain hormones come into play. We'll talk about like the hormone insulin that comes into the body to tell your blood sugar to go back down. And then you talk about what you had before, those highs and lows in energy. And so what we want to do is keep that sugar in your bloodstream circulating at a stable rate, not spiking and going up and being rapid and coming back down.
Where did the whole, what we've been told as athletes, as people that work out, over and over and over through time, is that you want that spike, or I don't know necessarily we've been told that, but it's people perceive that that spike is what gives them the energy and when they don't have that spike, they may not have the energy. As a dietitian, what would you say to that?
Well, I think the main thing when you talk about, especially for exercise, when someone wants that spike, they're usually playing catch up with their body. You're waiting until you need fuel. It's just like for a runner, myself, when I was running my a half marathon, I was waiting till I needed the energy to spike me, but that was because I wasn't stable. So you don't need that spike. And even Bob Seebahar, the Olympic dietitian, one of the first persons to professionals to look at our product, he said that as long as an athlete can maintain steady blood sugar levels, they can maintain peak performance. And so it's all about staying stable, because your body has enough internal stores of carbohydrate and also fat to for your muscles to use. You don't need a lot of energy in your bloodstream to get energy to your body. And that's a really important point.
So that's a great way to put it, Seth. And so we talked about the sugar spike, and then the sugar crash. I think everybody's familiar with the idea or concept of a crash, but really that feeling of fatigue you might have 30 or 40 minutes into a workout, depending on what you fueled with, could be attributed to that drop in blood sugar. Because when you get that surge and then the blood sugar starts to come down, that's when you feel fatigue. That's when your body starts producing certain stress hormones, and that's also when you start to feel hungry. A lot of times people go, "Oh, why did you take that gel 30 minutes into your run?" "Oh, I felt hungry." And it's not necessarily in some cases that they aren't well fueled. It's because their blood sugar dropped, and mentally they perceive that sensation as hunger. Seth, before we move on from this slide, I just want to ask you one more thing. Constantly having these highs and lows in blood sugar. I think a lot of times when people are into athletics or into endurance sports, training for a race, there's a certain performance goal in mind, and yes, people do want to get fit and improve their body composition, but a lot of times people aren't necessarily thinking about how what they're doing is affecting long-term health. What are some of the long-term health implications of having all these constant ups and downs and fluctuations in blood sugar?
Well, I mean, if you watch the film Fed Up, or it's all over the New York Times about what makes us always hungry. The fact is that if you're raising your blood sugar levels too often, um, you're teaching your body to have too much insulin in the body, and that's, we'll get into this more, but basically when you spike your blood sugar from either a gel or from orange juice or from a bagel before a workout, you flood your body with too many carbohydrates, and insulin is a hormone that responds to that spike in blood sugar. But over time, your insulin hormone has to work harder because you fatigue it. And if that insulin hormone is getting used too much because you're spiking your blood sugar too much, that's what can lead to certain diseases like insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome. That's where you start putting on weight because your insulin levels are high, and your body's burning too much sugar and can't access your fat stores. So over time, it's some pretty bad metabolic effects can occur, even in active individuals.
It's interesting. So let's kind of quickly move on and talk about the basis of Generation UCAN and what it was started for. So Jonah, who you're seeing on the screen, is son of one of our co-founders, and Jonah has a very rare blood sugar. As we talked about blood sugar, he's got a very rare blood sugar disease where he can't produce, his body can't produce glucose the way we all can. So Seth, you'll do a better job than I will at talking about Jonah's condition. But what was different in Jonah that that you and I all do when we sleep at night, or even to give us energy throughout the day?
So Jonah has a rare blood sugar disease called glycogen storage disease, and that's where these kids, they basically have life-threatening low blood sugar at night. They have no way of stabilizing their blood sugar at night. They have a pretty bad disorder, and because of that, before the 70s, these kids couldn't survive infancy. And later in the 70s, they started using plain Argo yellow box cornstarch you find in the supermarket. But it's short acting, so they'd be fed that multiple times per day, and that includes 10 to 12 feedings per day and 2 or 3 nighttime feedings. So our founder's wife was actually waking up every 2 hours to feed her son this plain cornstarch, and they were looking for a better way. And really, after around 8 years of research, looking at all different types of carbohydrates, what we'll describe in a second, the SuperStarch, what UCAN is, all of our products are based on, uh, was the best carbohydrate to stabilize blood sugar longest in those young kids. And now Jonah and his parents are all getting 8 hours of sleep instead of waking up multiple times per night, and they're not living that life by the clock anymore.
So SuperStarch, like Seth talked about, all carbohydrate sources were being evaluated for these kids to maintain that long lasting steady blood sugar. And as we just kind of went through in the intro, steady blood sugar translates, most just in layman's terms, it's steady energy. So they wanted to give these kids a steady level of energy throughout the night, so they didn't have to keep being woken up and being fed and go through all these stressful situations. So what SuperStarch is, it's the starting ingredient is non-GMO corn, We put it through a 40-hour, and of course, I just realized that thanks to somebody who alerted me that I wasn't even sharing any of these slides with everybody. So I apologize for that. I guess that changed when I put the poll up. But anyways, we haven't missed anything too important so far yet. But now hopefully you see this on the screen. What SuperStarch is, the carbohydrate in UCAN, is the starting ingredients non-GMO corn, very similar to waxy maize corn for those of you in the fitness world who are familiar with products that have waxy maize. But the key difference, what really sets this carbohydrate apart, is we put it through a 40-hour heat moisture process. So we just cook it with heat and water, but it's a very specific process. Think about cooking pasta. You could either undercook it or overcook it, and the way you cook it alters the taste, the texture, the way it interacts in your body. It's the same kind of concept with this carbohydrate. This 40-hour heat moisture process elongated the carbohydrate and slowed the breakdown. So rather than giving you, that quick acting spike in energy like we were talking about, or even like, when kids like Jonah were taking the regular cornstarch before and they were getting a couple hours of that steady release of glucose at a time, what this super starch did was just extended the release of the carbohydrates significantly. So it breaks down very, very slowly, and it lasts for a very long period of time. Just a couple things. The product, it's an all-natural cooking process, so the carbohydrates natural, had to be because originally infants were consuming it. They were the first customers, if you will. It's non-GMO. The corn's not genetically modified, gluten-free. We have athletes with serious celiac disease thriving on the product. And, it's backed by clinical science. So there was no intention at all of wanting to take this to the sports and fitness market. It was really something that we decided to take to sports and to fitness because of how beneficial it was. And this wasn't something that we decided ourselves. Actually, one of the people Seth mentioned, Bob Seebahar, at the time, he was the dietitian for the Olympic triathlon team, also working at the University of Florida. And we contacted him and, shared some of the research. And Bob said, if what you guys are saying is true, this is going to completely change the way, my athletes fuel. This is going to completely change the sports nutrition field. Bob said that statement about 6 or 7 years ago. And, now 4 years after UCAN launched, we're kind of living that statement today on just some of the amazing feedback we've gotten from people. So that's what SuperStarch is. It's a completely different carbohydrate. No matter what you see out there that talks about something that's based with non-GMO corn or some type of starch, there's nobody else that has this carbohydrate. The cooking process, we've got the worldwide patent on it, and that really is what makes SuperStarch unique. So, before we took this to sports, we wanted to test SuperStarch against maltodextrin, which we spoke about earlier. And maltodextrin is the carbohydrate you'll find in the majority of your sports nutrition products. Even when some product touts that they have no sugar, turn the label around and you'll see, 20 grams of carbs, 30 grams of carb per serving, and the first ingredient will be maltodextrin. So, Seth, what are people seeing on this slide? And maybe actually, before you talk about that, kind of talk about maybe the technical difference between maltodextrin and sugar. You see this out there a lot now where somebody says this doesn't have sugar, but it has maltodextrin in it. How are they different? How are they the same?
So maltodextrin is really a starch derived from corn, potato, or rice, and it's basically they use enzymes to make it a little bit of a longer chain carb. But as you see, that enzymatic process still creates a spike in blood sugar. So it's maltodextrin was actually, it was pretty good. It was an improvement towards simple sugars. And Bob Seebahar, like you were talking about, he talks about superstarch as the third generation of carbohydrates. You first had your simple sugars like your glucose and fructose drinks, and then you had drinks like the Hammer products that contain a lot of maltodextrin, and now you have a new carbohydrate, an improved form called superstarch. And the difference really, again, is that we use non-GMO corn, but it's our cooking process that allows this carbohydrate to give you calories and energy at the rate you need them, not all at once. And that's the beauty of UCAN. It's energy over time, and that works for a 30-minute run or a 2-hour marathon. Or I guess 2 hours is pretty quick. I've already maybe a 3 hour marathon.
Yeah, there you go. There's one guy I know that runs close to a 2 hour marathon. His name is Meb, and he actually did use just one serving of UCAN to fuel his marathon. But most of us aren't Meb, so we can't have a serving of UCAN and go win the Boston Marathon, unfortunately. But so that's the deal with blood sugar. But perhaps what was most significant about this carbohydrate and some of the amazing feedback we're getting is really tied into this slide over here, which deals with the hormone insulin. And Seth, first of all, what is insulin?
So as I alluded to before, insulin is a hormone that gets released into your body when your blood sugar gets high and when you spike your blood sugar. This hormone really comes into play when you're consuming the gels, the bananas, the cereal before a workout or a run. You're spiking your blood sugar because those carbohydrates enter the body rapidly. And then insulin comes in, and it has two functions. The first function of insulin is to bring your blood sugar back down. But the second function that's not always talked about is that insulin tells your body to stop burning fat. And that's huge because if you spike your blood sugar before you run and spike your insulin, you can't access your body fat stores during your exercise. You're going to burn just the calories in your bloodstream and the sugars in your bloodstream. And what you see here that maltodextrin, that blue line, real big spike in insulin. You can't. It's tough to see, but if you look on the bottom, that red line, almost flatlined, is UCAN's response. UCAN's insulin response. These were cyclists hooked up to metabolic carts. They were connected to intravenous blood draws, getting tested really every 15 minutes. And it's pretty remarkable that a carbohydrate can give you energy, but also allow your body to burn fat at the same time, which really allows you to burn fats while you keep your blood sugar steady, which is really remarkable.
So yeah, Seth, you kind of alluded to my next question for you, but how unique of a characteristic is that in a carbohydrate in terms of keeping insulin so low and really allowing you to freely burn fat, almost as if you're fasted?
Well, it's never. Well, the reason I mean, there are people that are looking for energy, but they also want to lean down, and they don't want to gain weight when they're running, or they're looking for a way to really maximize their exercise. And you know, the fact is that there are other things out there that might not spike your blood sugar too much. Let's say raspberries or some type of low glycemic carbs, but they won't sustain your blood sugar for the exercise, and they won't allow you to burn fat. They're not going to spike you as much, and that's the differentiator. Is that we have a carbohydrate that will not only steadily release over time to give you energy for the brain and muscles to use, but at the same time your body fat is breaking down to feed you energy as well, and that's how you can lean down but also get energy. It's a great combination.
One of the things that kind of blew my mind when we started talking about all this. This was maybe a couple of years ago. I was talking to Bob Seebahar, the gentleman we mentioned, a few times, and Bob was saying, the average individual has enough stored carbohydrates at any given time to fuel themselves through 2 to 3 hours of moderate exercise. That same individual has enough fat stores to fuel themselves through 8 to 10 Ironman triathlons. So, in addition to utilizing or burning more fat from a body composition and a leanness standpoint, you just want to be able to burn fat because it's just incredibly plentiful fuel. Even somebody like Meb, 4% body fat, 140 pounds, has 12 to 14,000 calories of stored fat that he can use for fuel. So we all have an abundance of fat that we can use for fuel. It's just the nutrition we consume affects whether or not we have access to burn it for fuel. And then Seth, one more point on fat burning. Just purely in terms of an energy standpoint, in terms of the calories it gives you, how do fat and carbs compare?
Well, fat has actually double the calories. Fat has 9 calories per gram, where carbs only have 4. That means you have 9 calories that are going to give you more ATP and more energy production than carbs will. But at the same time, the thing is that the more fat you can burn means the less sugar you burn, and that means the more likely you are to stabilize your blood sugar and also save the carbohydrates you need, maybe for a little bit of a higher intensity where you're sprinting or going up a hill or saving those carbs for later in a race. That's the key, is that the more fat you burn, the less glycogen and carbohydrates you burn. And I think, an analogy, Varn, to someone bonking during a race is think about like a gas truck driver who runs out of gas, but he's got a full tank of gas, but he just can't access it because it's sitting there in the back of his truck.
It's a great point. Yeah, so that is the analogy, right? When even though you may have that fuel available, if your body is just relying on pulling from carbohydrates, then it's not going to be, and when because your blood sugar is not stable or because insulin's high, it's not going to have access to that big fuel reserve that we all have. So let's get into some more nuts and bolts usage and see if you guys have any questions as well. Feel free to start firing away, but um, just quickly to review the benefits of UCAN. We talked about no spike and crash in blood sugar, so it's giving you that steady release of glucose, giving you hours of in some cases of that steady and even energy. We talked about the insulin, which allows the body to burn fat for fuel, and this idea that sometimes people get a little twisted. It's not that UCAN is allowing or causing you to only burn fat for fuel and you're not using any carbs. What we're doing though is we're giving you carbs at the rate you need them. We're not overwhelming you with unnecessary carbs or unnecessary calories, therefore allowing you to utilize the two different fuels, both fat and carbs. I alluded to this off the top where we were talking about how easy it is on the stomach. And, one of the things, characteristics of carbohydrates, and when we talk about maltodextrin as well, um, the reason maltodextrin came about initially was because it was an improvement from simple sugars because it was easier on the stomach. And one of the aspects that made it such is that it had a higher molecular weight. So larger molecules get in and out of the stomach quickly. Smaller molecules, like simple sugars, sit in the gut, pull water in, exert pressure on your GI tract. The molecular weight of our carb is 5,000 times the molecular weight of maltodextrin. So just a simple way to say that UCAN just gets in and out of the stomach so quickly. It is very very easy on the stomach. You won't feel it 10 minutes after you drink it. And then like we talked about, the carbohydrate is natural. It's just non-GMO corn, heat, and water. It's a food product. It doesn't have a supplement label. It has a nutrition facts label on it, and it's gluten free as well. So Seth, let's kind of talk. Actually, you know what we do before we do this? I want to toss up another poll. Just see. Let's see. See. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. Here we go. See what people here are interested in using UCAN for. So, yeah, if you guys don't mind answering this one again, we've got endurance sports, daily workouts, weight loss, weight management, everyday energy, and as a meal replacement. If we get some of the answers over here, then we can kind of figure out what topic areas to hit on as we talk more functionally about how to exactly to use UCAN. So I'll just give a couple more seconds. In the meantime, Dan's got a question. Let's see. Um, oh yeah, so Dan, this is a good question, and I didn't make this completely clear, but you actually raised two interesting points that Seth will touch on as well. So Dan asks, how can one packet fuel Meb for a full marathon since it's only 100 calories and a marathon requires at least 2,600 calories? What else does he fuel with right before the marathon? So Dan, actually, what he did before the marathon was he had, probably about 2 hours before the race, he had um, some wheat bread with almond butter, and then he had a banana, and then about an hour before the race, he had a packet of UCAN. Now, during the race, Meb ran Boston in 2:08:37. During the race, for him, all he needed was electrolytes, and Meb's a highly trained athlete, so he's clearly different than you and I. But the one thing for an athlete at his level is he's very efficient at burning fat. So his caloric needs might not always be the same as some of ours. But Seth, in terms of what Dan alluded to, saying that a marathon requires at least 2,600 calories, that's very much in line with the old school way of thinking about sports nutrition, right? Well, what would you say to Dan's comment regarding needing 2,600 calories for a marathon?
Well, the thing is that you know, men might be burning a lot of calories, But he's burning a lot of his fat calories, and even though he's extremely lean, I know he still has a lot more fat calories, like we were talking about before, than stored carbs. But he's got by fueling with carbohydrates the day before and making sure he's adequately fueled, he's able to pull on the stored carbohydrates in his body, as well as the stored fat in his body, and he has that proper pre-race, pretty professional pre-race meal to be adequately fueled. And so UCAN is the top off before his race, but he's obviously he had a good meal beforehand to make sure that he was adequately nourished with his glycogen stores. So
But even about
yeah.
how about even outside of MEB, the overall point of 2,600 calories for a marathon I don't know how Dan is thinking about it, but I certainly wouldn't recommend anybody ingest 2,600 calories during a marathon. Would you?
Oh, I mean, you can burn a lot of calories during a marathon, but the point is that you don't necessarily want to replenish 2,600 calories in a marathon just because you burn them, right? I mean, you want to release energy when you're exercising, not put energy back in your body, and you want to have enough energy to keep the system stable. But you don't need, you don't need to replenish every calorie you burn while you're exercising. That's not a good way to think about it, probably.
So Dan, happy to kind of. I'm not sure if we exactly understood what you were asking. I mean, I know in terms of what Meb did. Yeah, I didn't mean to make that unclear. He certainly had a breakfast. I just was trying to say in terms of sports nutrition. He had his packet of UCAN before, and then he didn't need between his breakfast and the UCAN before. He didn't need any other calories during the race. He was just consuming electrolytes. But certainly, if we missed something that you asked, please do share. I want to just quickly look at the results of this poll. So it looks like most of us in here are endurance athletes. Some people interested in using UCAN for daily workouts as well. You yourselves may also be endurance athletes and just also may want to look at it for your daily training. So we'll kind of tailor the discussion in that direction, but certainly, can answer questions that fall outside of that realm as well. So I will. Let's see. Before I describe the products, actually, this is kind of a good thing to talk about. Salvador's got a question. Seth, I'll toss this one to you again. Any suggested dietary changes to help our body rely more on fat burning than carbs?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that the first thing is to do is probably cut out a lot of the sugar in your diet in general. So, that's juices and sugar-based sports drinks. And then, in honesty, the best thing to do is cut out breads, pastas, and cereals, and replace them with higher protein foods and fats. Choosing avocados and peanut butter and coconut oil instead of your breads and pastas, and making sure you have adequate protein every meal. Eggs for breakfast, chicken for lunch, steak for dinner, or if you're a plant-based eater, making sure you have good vegan proteins. But emphasizing healthy proteins and fats and veggies rather than unrefined carbs would be a great start. And then you could, on non-workout days, you could implement UCAN in between your meals to keep your blood sugar stable and allow your body to have good fat utilization in between meals while keeping blood sugar stable. That's the way a lot of people use. A lot of folks are using UCAN now. It's a little off topic, but as a way to keep their energy up while they're trying to allow their bodies to be a better utilize fat for fuel better during the day, and then carry over to being a better fat burner during your workouts.
So, Salvador, if you're thinking about putting a meal together, rather than, loading the plate with rice and then filling in the other stuff around it or doing the same with pasta, it's really making sure you get that protein and fat portion of the meal first, and then the carbs should almost be the side. It shouldn't be the foundation of the meal. And now, of course, there's always, there can be exceptions here and there, but as a fundamental, way of putting together your weekly meal plan, that you should always try to think in those terms. And Seth, as we talked about blood sugar so much, how do pairing, protein and fat with carbs, to create that kind of that balanced 1-to-1 ratio, how does that impact blood sugar and the effect that these carbs would have on blood sugar?
Are we talking about carbs besides UCAN, Varn?
Yeah, exactly. Just your more traditional. if somebody wasn't going to, for somebody who's trying to eat healthier but isn't going to go to the extreme of cutting all carbs out of their diet and is still going to have, still going to have some carbs with their meals. What's the
Yeah.
advantage of pairing protein and fat and creating that balanced, 1-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, the protein and fat's going to help slow the absorption of the carbs. Hopefully, if they're really bad choices of carbs, like nothing's going to slow down a can of soda. But if you're having some quinoa or some a half a sweet potato or something like that, having some protein and fat with that meal or vegetables will help slow the absorption of the meal, and that's going to help minimize the impact of your blood sugar levels. So that's what's important to do outside of the workout period.
And I will say one thing that, like, we've seen a lot of NBA players, who've had a tremendous effect from UCAN, and a lot of them have, in terms of what a dietitian would recommend, not close to the best diets, like cheeseburgers, McDonald's, things like that. They're traveling all the time, and they still feel a great effect of UCAN because that benefit of keeping your blood sugar stable is really applicable to anybody. So it's kind of twofold. I mean, for an endurance athlete, if you want to rely primarily on UCAN, certainly some dietary changes, a couple week adjustment period maybe for some, depending if you're a super long course triathlete and want to go exclusively UCAN for a 10, 12-hour event. It might take some time to adjust, but you don't have to eat a certain way. I think sometimes people think that UCAN is only a product that applies if you're on a certain diet, and that's not the case at all. You can always benefit from keeping your blood sugar stable, whether it's before a workout, whether it's in the middle of the day. So one way to think of UCAN is it's really a tool to keep your blood sugar stable, which is really what you want all the time. So once you're getting into really long exercise, yes, you may have to tinker with it, play around with it. It may be a bit of an adjustment period, but if you're going out for an hour workout or a 90-minute workout, you'll feel a good effect from UCAN the first time you use it. And certainly over time, people find that as they get better at burning fat, they need less and less of it over time. It lasts them longer because their body's becoming more efficient at using the two fuel sources. So let's talk a little bit, and we'll get to some more questions about the two lines of UCAN, basically what the two products are. And I apologize, this is actually an older slide. We have a new tropical orange flavor that falls in the sports drink mix category as well, which I'm actually sipping on as we speak. It's terrific. But the sports drink mix, essentially, it has the SuperStarch and it has electrolytes. A packet averages around 120 calories per packet. Each packet has roughly about 30 grams of our carbohydrate. And so the sports drink mix is really something that should be used 30 minutes before a workout. You want to think of UCAN, even though it's a drink, as a pre-workout snack. You're having it instead of the cereal, the bagel, the banana, the energy bar. You want to use it 30 minutes before, and that packet will give you a good 90 minutes to 2 hours of that steady and even energy. So if you're going for under 2 hours, life is good. It's easy. You just have your UCAN before. So this is when we're talking about the daily workouts. Have the UCAN before. Um, you go into an hour yoga class, strength training for an hour in the gym. Um, Actually, you know what, Seth, you're saving me today. I'm some reason some people say they're still seeing the poll. Let me see if I can get this slide back up. All right, there we go. Sorry about that, everybody. So now you should see this slide on the screen. So yeah, so I'm sorry. So the sports drink mix, really think of it as a pre-workout snack. 30 minutes before the workout should give you a good 90 minutes to 2 hours of steady energy. If you're going for longer than 2 hours, you could take a serving of UCAN roughly every 75 to 90 minutes. Now we do have a lot of endurance athletes in here. A lot of you probably are going longer than 2 hours. What's important to consider is that with a gel, with sugar-based drink, is like Seth was talking about. You fuel with those when you feel low. You fuel with it when your body needs to catch up and you feel depleted. With UCAN, because it breaks, that's a slower breakdown and it's not giving you that surge of energy right away. You need to be ahead of the fueling. So, for example, if you know that the allotted serving of UCAN is going to give you 2 hours of energy and you're going for a 4 hour ride, you want to take that next dose 90 minutes in because at the 2 hour mark, that's when you're going to need the other serving, but you want to have already taken it. So it's going to start, the carbohydrate will start releasing into your system at that time. So that's where it takes a little bit of trial and error. You need to kind of figure out how long that initial serving you're taking lasts you. Some people decide to up the initial serving, maybe take 2 packets and it'll last them 3 hours. Some people say, you know what, I like my 1 packet at a time. I'll take it every 90 minutes, and that works well for me. Initially, when you're starting off, again, if you're used to fueling with a lot of sugar-based fuels, um, you want to start with a packet every hour. Just if you don't want to sacrifice the quality of 3 or 4 hour workout, you may want to say, let me start by taking a packet every hour, then I'll tinker with it, and slowly you might be able to start spacing out the timing of it. So in terms of the sports drink mix, also great midday as a healthy snack. A lot of times at 3 o'clock when you're kind of in that awkward period after lunch, you don't know what to really have at your desk at work. You may gravitate towards a soda, a coffee, another cup of coffee. Um, UCAN's really that nice thing that'll keep your energy really even, and it'll tide you over. And then the final thing is, I love the adding the sports drink mix as part of the meal replacement shake. Breakfast this morning, yesterday, I mean, was a tropical orange UCAN, tablespoon of or 2 tablespoons of Greek yogurt, a small handful of blueberries, and blended it with ice. And so works really well when you pair it. It's not a true meal replacement on its own, more of like a snack, but you could certainly pair it with protein, with fat, a little bit of fruit, and create a great meal replacement shake. Seth, what about the protein UCAN? How do you recommend people use that, and what should they use it for?
So the protein enhanced UCAN actually can be used, before a workout. The added protein can help curb hunger in the stomach, especially for someone who wakes up with morning hunger. There are a lot of folks who are waking up in the morning, and it's not shown here, but we have a new vanilla cream flavor in tub forms. And if you're going out for a 5 mile run in the morning, you could have a scoop of the vanilla cream UCAN. It's got around 8 grams of protein to curb hunger in the stomach. UCAN will keep you very steady throughout your 5 miles. And then you can come home and have a healthy breakfast. And although it's protein enhanced, and a lot of people think protein is only good for recovery, I'll tell you, it's really great before exercise. And but it also can be used for recovery if you're someone who wants to get the benefits of UCAN after a workout, which is steady blood sugar and continuing the fat burning effect of the workout.
So, what about using the protein UCAN, during the workout?
Hey, listen, there's a lot of folks that can tolerate protein very well. Some people say, that protein can be GI distress during a workout, but you got to test it yourself. But we got any Ironman athletes, mountain bikers, or uh, folks going out for long periods of time. That added protein can help curb hunger along the way. So sometimes it's good to have the added protein during the workout. I mean, I was actually, Varn, I was doing 2 hours of mountain biking a couple weeks ago, and I had 2 scoops of our vanilla cream UCAN. That equals a packet. Around 30 minutes before I started, and then this is the first time I actually had UCAN during a workout. And I took a lemonade packet, put it in a bottle that I put on the bike, and it was probably an hour and a half in that I just said, you know what, why don't I just take the lemonade UCAN and keep going, and it worked out very well. So the protein enhanced can definitely be used before, and you can use it during, or you can try the sports mix during. It depends on the goal and how long the workout is, and what you're really planning on doing. But if you're someone who's prone to hunger during a workout, the protein enhanced UCAN can those extra protein grams can help curb that hunger, and keep it quiet for your exercise.
Paulie and Andrea, definitely see both of your questions. We're going to answer those in a moment. Might be catching them off guard, but I want to see if I can bring Bill on with us. Bill just shared that he completed Ironman Raleigh this over the weekend on 560 total calories of UCAN. It was a half Ironman 70.3. So some of the questions people are asking may in fact be answered by Bill's feedback. So let's see if this works. Bill, are you with us?
I'm there. Can you hear me?
We can, Bill. How are you doing today? What's going on?
Doing well, thank you.
Fantastic. I believe you and I spoke at Rock and Roll Raleigh at our booth, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on a good weekend. So we have some people in here asking about fueling for longer events. What people are doing in conjunction with UCAN. So yeah, why don't you lay it out for us? What did you do during this race, and how did it work for you?
Well, it worked great. It was actually my first triathlon.
Oh
I'd
wow,
always been I'd been a runner. Um, I actually started using UCAN about 5 months ago just for training, just getting ready for this race. Um, I have followed Bahar, pretty much his diet and what he, as far as getting um, efficient and things like that for the last 6 months too. So I'm sure that's helped me along the way. But it worked out really well for me. I was going into it a little, I didn't know what to expect about the product. I did train myself to take on some cola late if I needed to do that. I didn't end up needing to do that. Um, what I did was I took a couple scoops of protein UCAN that morning. I had filled a bottle with about 6 scoops of UCAN in a bottle that I put on my bike, which I hit twice, and I only took about 2/3 of it. And then I also had 2 scoops in a small gel flask for the run, which I took about half of. So never bonked. I'm 50 years old, and I did 5:45 for my first.
it's amazing.
Um,
Congratulations, that's awesome.
so all I can say is it worked for me very, very well. I can't imagine using anything else at this point. But anyway, that's my story.
So if we're kind of doing some quick math, then Bill, the 2 scoops of the protein you took in the morning, that's about, before the swim, that's roughly about 100, I think
Right,
160 calories or so,
right.
right there. And then you said you had 6 scoops in your bottle, so that's about another, 480
Yeah, but
calories.
I only took 2/3 of that bottle.
Okay, so let's say roughly about 360
Right.
calories on the bike, and then you said you had half of a scoop on the run.
I
Is
did.
that
I had 2 scoops in a flask, and I took about half the flask, so that's another scoop right there.
okay? Another scoop. So we're talking about so during the try we're talking about 400 to
Right,
450 calories, and then before we're talking about 160 calories in a
right.
5 hour effort. So that's amazing. And one of the questions that Andrea had. Actually that you might be I don't know if you had anything else. She was asking about what foods work well in conjunction with UCAN. Did you supplement with anything else, whether it was additional electrolytes or any other calories?
I took the Succeed. I think they're G-Tab. They're salt. They're electrolytes essentially, and just water from the course. Nothing else.
Okay, so no other calories, you were just
No.
taking electrolytes. And how about morning of, what did you have any some breakfast the morning of?
I had a piece of wheat toast with peanut butter, banana, and some honey.
Okay, gotcha. So that and how about how long before the race was that?
Um, 2 hours at least, probably 2.5 hours maybe.
Gotcha.
And
So
I had the protein you can about an hour before the race.
an hour before. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Well, Bill, we're giving away all your secrets, but appreciate you coming on. And I have one final question for you. Well, you did say this was your first
Uh-huh.
triathlon, but if you'd done any type of long effort, whether it was running or just even if not in competition, just long training bike rides, how did what you did in this race compare to what you were doing nutritionally to fuel you through workouts before?
Oh, I've done a few marathons, and they were all. I tried the gels. I tried Gatorade, things like that for a long time, and they had no way compared to my results this time around. I cramped too a lot in my in a couple of those marathons, so and obviously getting my nutrition right, getting my water right, getting my electrolytes right, all contributed to helping that. But I had none of that this time, so it was very enjoyable. And to be honest with you, I, I think for a first Ironman, I kind of held back a lot during each of those phases and really didn't push anything till about the last 3 miles. My last 3 miles, I did the run I did the run I think in 157. I did the run in 157, and I averaged I think the last 3 miles at 8-minute mile, so I finished a lot stronger, and I probably had enough energy probably for the last. I mean, I didn't feel any kind of tiredness probably for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours after the event. So I probably overdid my UCAN to a certain extent.
That's interesting. Well, I'm excited to hear how it goes for you next time. I think your dog in the background's even more excited than we are to hear about your results. So, no worries at all. Thanks a lot, Bill. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I'm sure it's helpful to others. And Bill had a one question too, which was, how long can you pre-mix UCAN? We generally recommend if you're going to pre-mix it, having it within 36 hours, 36 to 48 hours. So certainly no issue pre-mixing it the night before. We have many triathletes that leave it in transition. The day before, we have many folks that, if they're morning runners, early morning runners, mix it up and refrigerate it the night before. So no issue with doing that the night before. Just try to consume it within about 36 hours or so. Let's see, Paulie, what we get, or actually, we'll get Andrea's question first and then Paulie's question. So Andrea was asking Seth, I'll toss this one to you since it wasn't really applicable for what Bill did. She said, I realize sugar-based gels negate the positive fat-burning effects of UCAN. What about a fat-based snack in a super long run like almond butter? What do you recommend, Seth, that people have if they want some food or if they want something to help curb hunger?
That's fine. The almond butter packets are great. Coconut oil, all that stuff is fantastic. The main thing is that the more I got an email from a customer last week, and he said, the more I use UCAN, the better the results. So the thing is that over time, as you're using UCAN, that hunger usually goes away. You kind of get very used to feeding off your own body fat and keeping your blood sugar stable. But yeah, almond butter is fine.
Great. Some other things, Andrea, that we've had customers have is if you can find a low sugar bar, they would cut it up into pieces and kind of snack on that periodically. I know for some people, chewing is tough. I've had some customers tell me they've snacked on almonds or walnuts when it's possible. Me personally, I don't know if that would be my choice when I'm running. I would prefer it in the more of the butter form, but yeah, you're thinking exactly along the right lines, Andrea. You basically just want to try to keep the sugar content of whatever you're having relatively low, and really what we tell people is that UCAN is going to take care of your energy needs. So a lot of times, people may, like I talked about in the beginning, people may say, I feel hungry, let me have a gel. But 25, 30 grams of sugar doesn't curb hunger. It's a temporary fix. So really, if it's for hunger, any source of protein or fat that you can tolerate that's will digest easy is perfectly fine in conjunction with UCAN. So I hope that answered your question. Excuse me, Paulie. Getting choked up over here over these questions. Paulie wants to know if I take if I take a packet of UCAN before a high intensity workout lasting about an hour, do I need another scoop afterwards to replace glycogen?
So he's having a scoop of UCAN before, you said an hour and a half?
I think Paulie's a she. I believe she said she's having a packet of UCAN. The workout lasts an hour. I assume the packet's being taken, about 30 minutes before, somewhere in that range. So basically, wanting to know if it's a very high intensity workout, where traditional exercise physiology is taught you that you're going to burn more carbohydrate than fat, therefore you're depleting your carbohydrates to a greater extent. And again, I'm going to let you answer this how you want, Seth. I'm just kind of laying out what the textbook says. She basically wants to know, for that type of intense workout, do I need another scoop afterwards to replenish glycogen?
Yeah, so, the likelihood is that after a high intensity workout, if you want to keep your blood sugar stable, um, we find amazing benefits from using UCAN post workout to continue the fat burning effect and keep blood sugar stable. That said, if you feel pretty good after that workout, some people have a whole food meal and then save that UCAN for later in the day, or for that's kind of, it's post workout, things are flexible and it's more based on experience. But a lot of our runners and exercisers find that they have a scoop of UCAN post workout. It also helps their energy for the rest of the day because their blood sugar is not kind of dropping later in the day. So I say after a hard workout, scoop of UCAN is really very beneficial post workout.
I want to share something on the screen over here. This was actually done by an endurance coach out in at Lifetime Fitness. His name's Lance Leo in Minnesota, and this kind of relates actually, Paulie, to what you were talking about in terms of high intensity training. So what I was starting to allude to previously was that traditional exercise physiology shows that tells us that when you're pushing the intensity, that the body is going to want to pull more and use more carbohydrate for fuel and not use as much fat for fuel. That's why a lot of people traditionally have said to burn fat and to really get yourself in that fat burning zone, you want to do slow and steady cardio and do it for a long period of time. The zone 2 runs, et cetera, et cetera. So what Lance did was, he treated his body like a laboratory, and granted, this is one person, so non-scientific from that standpoint, but we've had other trainers at Lifetime send us similar data, and so Lance basically he wanted to compare the fat burning effect of Hammer Heed, which is a maltodextrin based product, against the fat burning effect of UCAN, and he wanted to do it in a high intensity setting. So what you see on your screen, and Seth, you are seeing the screen now, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So what you're seeing on the screen is basically a treadmill test that Lance did. The first set of data we're going to look at is the treadmill test using the heat. So Seth, what should people hone in on over here? I know there's a lot of numbers on the screen.
So you can see that it's on the left side where it says mph, miles per hour. He's basically ramping himself up to a higher intensity, 8.9 to 9.3, 9.7, 10.1, all the way up to 10.9. So we all always think 10.9 is pretty high intensity, and you can, if you look at the fat percent, if you take Varn's arrow and go across the bottom, you see that he's burning actually 53% fat.
Oh, sorry. You know what? I screwed that up. I was on the heat. Let's look at heat first. So sorry about that. So again, we're at 10.9 miles per hour on the treadmill, and we're looking at the fat percent.
I still see the UCAN, Varn.
You still see the UCAN. Okay.
Now I see heat. Okay, I see
Excellent.
heat.
Okay.
So with the heat, where that Varn's arrow is, you see it's at 12.7% fat, and that's because he's putting a lot of carbohydrates in the body as he's trying to ramp himself up to threshold. So as we talked about before, that insulin response, the too much sugar in the bloodstream, he's only burning 12.7% fat at that 10.9 miles per hour.
Now let's
But if
see
you
what with UCAN.
look at UCAN, fat burning's quadrupled. He's at 53% fat at 10.9 miles per hour. So this challenges the whole notion that at high intensities the body can only burn carbs and needs that sugar spike. Fact is that he's keeping his sugar stable. He's burning more fat at higher intensities, and that's huge for an energy sparing effect, to not burn as much glycogen and just to keep blood sugar stable and burn fat at higher intensities. I mean, you don't want to waste time, especially if the goal is leaning down or if it's performance. This way you get the best of both worlds. You can get performance and keep your body composition in check.
So, just to put this in context for everybody, 10.9 miles per hour on a treadmill is about a 5.5 minute mile, to give you, an idea of the intensity and the speed. So, Paulie, this was kind of a long-winded way, but I wanted to share this data with everybody to answer your question of saying that even at high intensities, when you're using UCAN before, you might not be depleting your glycogen as much as you traditionally would think you are if you were using another carbohydrate for a high intensity workout. With UCAN, you're going to be, even at high intensities, burning a lot more fat for fuel than other carbohydrates. So you certainly still may want to replenish your glycogen. I guess in some ways you might have to go by feel. There would certainly be no harm in taking another scoop of UCAN after. It would stabilize you. It would keep your energy nice and even. It would allow you to continue that fat burning effect of the high intensity exercise. So, it would certainly not harm you. It would be beneficial, especially if you have other stuff to do after that workout. But the way you asked the question, do I need another scoop? Maybe not. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So you might have to go. You might have to go by feel in that sense. Let's see. We got a few more questions. Polly asks, will you have more flavors with stevia? So absolutely. I think our biggest, one of our major focuses right now is to get all of our products to be naturally sweetened. So currently, the cranberry raspberry flavor is sweetened with stevia. The new orange flavor is also naturally sweetened. We use monk fruit, which is a 0 calorie natural fruit sweetener. Stevia is a natural plant sweetener. Monk fruit is essentially the fruit equivalent of that. And then the vanilla cream, the protein enhanced product, also uses the monk fruit. So the other flavors use a little bit of sucralose, which is also known as Splenda, artificial sweetener. But we're working on getting those out of all the products, and I'd say certainly by the end of 2014, if not sooner, we will have all of our flavors naturally sweetened. Let's see. Oh, this is actually Polly. You're just you're killing it with the questions right now. This is another good one. How does it affect your body if you take it all at once before a workout versus sipping it during a workout? So that's an interesting question because the way we recommend using the product is to treat it like a food, and when you're consuming it, to consume it over a relatively short period of time. From what we know about the carbohydrate, it works best when you get it all into your system at once and then allow it to slowly release, act in almost a time release fashion on its own. But Seth, what would you say? I know you talk to a whole variety of athletes, from endurance athletes to people who are strength training, team sport athletes. What do you hear from the people you talk to?
So the main thing is that you know, if it's under an hour, you really want to have it before, so it's breaking down. It does take some time to break down. That's why we tell you to have it 30 minutes before. Um, let's say you're someone who's an endurance athlete. You're going out for a 3-hour bike ride on a Saturday morning, and if you have a packet before you start and you want to sip on another packet, that's okay because you have that first packet releasing through your body. So the option is a lot of the times that you can sip on it if you want, if as long as you've had a full serving before. Um, and if you notice it's not giving the effect you need, that's when you have to have a full serving at once to make sure it's releasing at a better rate. So the only way, same thing about using UCAN post workout, is you got to experiment yourself to see what works better for you. We've had people say sipping on it works fine as long as they've had a serving before. Other people say, you know what, I need to make sure I have a full serving. When we recommend UCAN every 60 minutes during a 4-hour ride, you really want to get that serving in within 10 or 15 minutes. So you got to experiment.
Let's see. So we had actually a question from Dan. He had emailed me this one, and I think Dan also posted a question in the chat. Going back to Meb, he said, I was wondering about his top off before the race to see if he was running up his blood sugar immediately before his race, since given his speed, he would need max energy. Not sure if burning fat stores could give you that kind of speed, especially once you hit the wall. So it's interesting, Dan. That's kind of what we were talking about with this paradigm shift and some of the data that we shared with Lance, where if your blood sugar is stable and insulin's low, a lot of the traditional notion of being able to use fat at high intensities or when you really need it the most, this is kind of challenging that way of thinking. So hope that some of the data we just shared kind of contributed to that question. But Seth, Dan also wants to know, via email, what's your opinion of using UCAN but also eating bread with honey with it? Will this result in? And he's talking about as a breakfast before a marathon. Will it still result in stable energy, or will the spike be too much?
You know, Listen, I think the main thing is that everybody's a little bit different. Everybody tolerates carbohydrates differently. Um, the only thing I would say is it's just probably not necessary to have them all together. I would probably, if you want to have that kind of a little bit of a higher carb breakfast, just because it might be what you traditionally have, or it's convenient to have. You want to have that probably an hour and a half before you have the UCAN. But who am I to say? You might respond very well to both at the same time. The only thing to do is treat your body like a laboratory and try it. Um, but I think the main thing is that a lot of folks who are endurance athletes, who are running, who are training their bodies to be fit, everybody has the potential to be an amazing fat burner because the adaptation to these endurance sports, and is to to go back to ninth grade biology. Your mitochondria grow larger. You have more capability to keep your the enzymes in your surrounding your mitochondria are upregulated, meaning you're able to burn fat at a better rate. So I really think that if you want to have some carbs before, you have to experiment, but the ability to burn fat during a workout is there for you. But the only thing is that you just got to make sure you don't have gels, because that's when you start that cycle of burning sugars. And that's what UCAN does. It allows your body to actually get into that state that you're creating. You're creating that state of being a better fat burner, and now you can actually access it.
This is something that I've kind of learned being in this world of UCAN and around dietitians and people in the nutrition field. The first time I heard it, everybody's different. You have to see what works for you. Kind of laughed at it and said, "Is that really an answer?" But the more and more, it truly is. Just to reemphasize what Seth says. What we try to give here is some general recommendations and kind of what we feel like is the best approach for the majority of people. But exactly what Seth said, Dan. If like you might want to try using some almond butter or peanut butter on that toast instead of honey, so it's not just carbs. Or maybe along with that toast you have some eggs. So again, you're blunting a little bit of that blood sugar spike. So play around with it and I guess see what you feel like the effect is too. Our recommendation would be not to make it a purely carb-based breakfast and not have the toast and honey, but see what happens when you mix in some protein or fat with that, and I think you'll find it has a better effect. We got just maybe a couple more things to hit on, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening. I just want to thank everyone for being with us, though, and I'm going to post a discount coupon code in the chat. You can use the code UCANLEARN, all one word, at our online store. That's generationyoucan.com/store, and you'll get a 15, excuse me. I was almost incredible misspeak for everybody in the audience. 15% discount on UCAN on all the products, tubs, packets, whatever you want to buy. So it's just UCAN Learn. You can enter that in on the final screen at the online store, and this code will be valid through the end of the weekend. So you'll have until Sunday night to take advantage of this special 15% discount. So we want to thank you guys big time for joining us and spending some of your evening with us. I just want to hit on one last slide, and then Seth, I'll let you add anything that you want to just emphasize before we sign off for the evening. But this a lot of the feedback we're getting from our customers, in terms of how they were fueling for a 2-hour workout prior to UCAN and how they're doing it now has been exactly what you see on this slide. So 130 calories of UCAN taken before a workout is giving people 90 minutes to 2 hours of that steady and even energy. Previously, those same people might have been having, some type of energy bar before the workout as a snack and then sipping on, a bottle and a half of X sports drink during their workout. Might have been about 350 calories. Or, the same deal with gels. A gel about 10 to 15 minutes before they start, then a gel every 30 to 40 minutes, throughout their 2-hour run. Again, 100 calories per gel, you're looking at 400 calories. So probably the biggest question we get from triathletes is, how am I replacing 400 with 130 or 350 with 130 and my performance isn't suffering? If you look at the quote at the bottom from Kathy Eccles, she studies the human metabolism at Yale, and Kathy talks about really wrapping up everything we've been talking about this evening. It's really the ability to maintain blood sugar that sustains energy levels. So from a fitness standpoint, UCAN is huge because it does that without putting lots of calories on board. It's beneficial because you can make every calorie count. So in a lot of those cases with the gels, you're taking that next gel and that next gel and that next gel in an effort to maintain your blood sugar. You're trying to accomplish the same goal, but you're doing it by dumping lots of calories into your body. With UCAN, we're allowing you to accomplish that goal without that repeated caloric intake. So one way to think about it is just it's a simpler way and a more healthy and efficient way to accomplish what you were trying to already accomplish. And the other aspect of it, we've talked about this at length, but we've always thought of calories as what we intake. So when we talk about 400 calories that we're getting from gels, we're saying, yes, we're ingesting 400 calories. But again, with UCAN, because as we talked about with insulin, as we saw with Coach Lance Leo's data, because you're able to burn fat to such a greater extent, with UCAN, it kind of changes the way you think about it. Your calories aren't just what you're consuming. Your calories are also your internal fat calories that you're burning to a greater extent. So that again, that's where being able to replace, 2.5 or 2 times the calories with a smaller dose of UCAN, that's where it really comes into play. Seth, any final thoughts from you tonight before we wrap this up? Anything that you want people to really remember, or anything we didn't hit on?
No, if we have any endurance athletes out there, just remember that even if you're going out for 45 minutes to an hour, whether it's a ride or it's a run or it's a swim or it's strength training, that's why we came out with our tubs of UCAN to have a scoop before for those shorter workouts. And a lot of times, some folks might save UCAN for that 2 hour workout, but the more I keep talking to our customers and our athletes and especially, we're in gyms like Lifetime Fitness throughout the country, the more, people are using UCAN for those shorter workouts to keep their blood sugar stable and help their bodies better burn fat, even during that 45-minute workout rather than, a banana or not eating before. So think about UCAN for shorter workouts as well. Thank you, Vard.
Excellent. Well, Seth, appreciate your time tonight, and yeah, I would just say, one thing we didn't talk about just logistically in terms of mixing it, it's not going to dissolve in water. So you want to use, if you have a shaker bottle, you don't want to do what Seth did the first time, which is pour it in a red cup and stir it with a knife. Definitely give it a good hard shake because it won't dissolve. Cold water isn't necessary, but tastes best when it's cold, like most powders do. And really think of it as a pre-workout snack. Like Seth said, I would definitely suggest using it before an hour workout, using it before a 90-minute workout, before you kind of go out and put it through the ringer on a 5 or 6 hour brick. Figure out how long it lasts you, how it works for you, how to time the doses. But once you get past that timing, I think as Bill shared with us earlier, it's going to allow you to do some pretty amazing things. It's really going to simplify the nutrition, and ultimately that's the goal. While we may have gotten in depth and sciencey, we really did that because we wanted people to understand that this isn't just, it's not the same old with fancy marketing behind it. It's a fundamentally different carbohydrate that interacts with your body on a very different level. So, once you kind of play around with it, yes, the science may seem a little overwhelming for some, but in reality, the usage of the product is going to make life a lot easier, especially if you're an endurance athlete. So yeah, with that being said, make sure to take advantage of the coupon. You can stock up on some product if you'd like. If you have any questions for Seth or I'll put Seth's email in the chat. Seth, again, is our director of nutrition and our dietitian. You can reach him at ucanrd@ucanco.com. If you have any questions, you will be getting a recording of this webinar in your email a little bit later tonight. And that'll be coming from me. So you'll have my email as well if there's anything further you'd like to discuss. But thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Bill, for coming on. Thanks to Bill's dog for making a cameo as well.
Yeah.
We appreciate all the support, and we will talk to you guys soon. Take care,
Well,
everybody. Have a good night. Yeah, go ahead,
Vard,
Seth.
I'll tell you something. I just got an email today about using UCAN for dog racing.
You can for dog racing, huh? So did they try it yet, or was a question about doing it?
It's just funny because we haven't thought about using our products for animals.
I'll tell you, my girlfriend's dad races pigeons and talked about giving UCAN to his pigeons. So once we figure out how to make it work for all these endurance athletes, our next market will be dogs and pigeons.
Talk to you. See you tomorrow.
All right, with that, it's time to go. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.